Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar, Accessible Amelia. And we're going to cover four topics or four questions we're proposing. We'll try and answer for you. Why be accessible? What makes a place travelable? How accessible is Amelia Island right now? And, what are the next steps in making our island more accessible? Today we have Sylvia Longmire joining us. Sylvia is founder of Spin the Globe travel blog. She's an entrepreneur at Wheels Up Media, producer, director, bilingual voice actor, TV personality, photographer, the list goes on, right? Disability rights advocate, also served in the U.S. Air Force. Thank you for your service, Sylvia. And you are the 2016 Miss Wheelchair USA. So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate the time you're spending with us today. And we also have Mr. Alan Day. Alan is with, he's the founder and CEO of Autism Double Checked. Okay, and ASD Vacation. So he's changing the, how people travel with autism and helping companies classify themselves in different levels of autism readiness. So thank you, Alan, for joining us.
Oh, pleasure to be here.
I believe I have Jake Steinman on the phone, so give me 1 second and see if we can get him connected. Hi, Jake. Okay. I'll send it to you right now. Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. So we're going to get Jake connected. So just give me just a moment and make sure he has the correct link to begin. Okay. There we are. Sorry for that. So we're gonna let's start off with why be accessible, right? We know that's something, it's an ADA requirement. There's a lot of legalities around this, and it's also the right thing to do. Now there's also a business case for this, okay? And let's kind of dive into that. I'm gonna share my screen here. And here we are. So open-door.org, they did a study 2018 through 2019. And this is quite interesting. There's 27 million travelers with disabilities. They took, during that time period, 81 million trips. So that's $58 billion just on the individuals travel during this time period. And that has increased since the last study by 34 billion. So over double in 5 years, the spend from travelers with disabilities. 84% of people traveling, stayed in paid accommodations. About 70% of individuals traveling with disabilities also had companions. Their average party size is about 3 people. So this is quite a, attractive demographic for travel. Now, interesting enough is, and we're going to get Jake in here. Interesting enough, during this study, baby boomers. So there's 75 million baby boomers out there, and there's about 31 million folks will age into disability. So increasing this number of 27 million travelers, about doubling that over time. So even more interesting to me is the baby boomers, they control 56% of all discretionary spend in the country. So that's just fascinating. So this is quite a demographic to look at as a business case. Jake, are you with us?
I am.
Awesome. Thanks for joining
Sorry to be
us.
late. So
Hey,
just
sorry
so
for the
just-
technical difficulties.
Okay, all right.
We were just covering the business case behind the Accessible Traveler. And there you are, Jake. So thanks to you, you provided that information to me by attending your last Travelability Summit in Tampa. I know you have one coming up in June. And can you take us through the Accessibility Playbook, just as an overview, this resource that's out there? How did this come about, and what resources are you hoping to provide the travel industry?
So, okay, so, I'm 3 years into this journey. So, in terms of accessibility of travel. And what I learned early on was that, that I had the contacts. I had sold my company in 2019, and I've been in the travel industry for I think about 24 years in terms of dealing with destinations mostly, and attractions, and a few hotels that were interested in inbound tourism or in digital marketing, which was really the areas that I happened to be in, that my company was in. And how I got into this was really that I got an award from the city of Sausalito, where my office is, at proclaiming North American Journeys, my company, Travel Agent of the Year. And we were not travel agents, but during the course of the year, we had a number of different people just knocking on our door asking for help planning travel. And half of them had somebody with a disability. And I started to look into the information that was available for them, and I couldn't find anything. You start Googling things and just and so I decided to go on a listening tour and to learn more about this. And the more I learned, the more I realized that I started to look at the ADA laws, and I realized that there's an ADA for physical infrastructure for people with disabilities, but there was no ADA for information. And the ADA was actually created, and since every disability has a spectrum, the laws were really created for the mean of that spectrum, which meant that half the people that were disabled were, the laws weren't enough for them to be able to enjoy travel. And so we put on the conference, and I started to look into this. And the more I looked into it, I found research. I had talked to a lot of people that had created business cases around it, and including states and cities and hotels. And so I decided to put everything that I found into a playbook, and into this 38-page playbook that contained all of the elements that are on this slide. The business case, how to provide information, website examples of accessible websites. And what I learned was really that the destinations are in a position because they have relationships with their hotels. I mean, look what you've done, Nate. You've got relationships with your hotels, you've got relationships with restaurants, museums, tour guides, attractions, and they're the best people to actually filter information out to in terms of accessibility. So we created it for that. And some of the tips in there was we have a series of tips for every different position in a hotel, including 2-minute videos. Mm-hmm. And these were created by we got the tips from British Columbia, Destination British Columbia. It took them a year to basically put those tips together. They started out with a survey of their DMOs, who actually surveyed their partners, as you did. And it took them 6 times to send that survey out to get that information. And then they hired a consultant for $50,000 to basically put all of this together. And that consultant took these surveys to the results of the survey to different disability groups. That basically, it was just like a public hearing for disability groups on these to come up with these tips. Well, anyway, so they allowed us to share that through this playbook. And so and then Scandic Hotels had 7 videos that they used to train, all under 2 minutes, that they used to train different positions in their hotels. They have 10,000 employees with 53% turnover. And so they shared those videos with us. And so it contains all these elements, and people have basically told us that this was something that had everything in one place. And we're working, and we're creating the Destination Ally program, which are basically sponsors of our conference. And we're giving them the playbook free as part of that Destination Ally program. So that's what this contains, but it contains a hotel toolkit. It basically contains videos, training videos, e-learning videos, the tips, web examples of what an ideal accessible website should, features should contain. And so anyway, and then we've segued into the Emerging Market Summit because we're trying to slipstream accessibility into DE&I, which is kind of where it belongs to get the attention of the budget that it needs to address. And so we've combined it with DE&I, sustainability, and accessibility as one event. And so that's what's happened. And right now we're about 100% ahead of where we were in 2019 in terms of attendance, because probably people are interested in learning more about those 3 elements. So that's kind of where we stand. So, and I have to commend you, because Nate came up to me after the conference, or during the conference, and said to me, he said, I want to create a landing page, but it just seems so daunting, because, how can we create a landing page for all these different, disabilities, and how am I going to discover all these different disabilities? How are we going to find these features? And on my flight home back to San Francisco, I just Googled accessible things to do in Amelia Island, and up popped Sylvia Longmire's. Hello, Sylvia. Up pops Sylvia Longmire's blog post about her weekend in Amelia Island. I looked up and so I researched on the plane. I researched the links for everything that she mentioned, all the accessibility, all at the attractions, the restaurants, all the things that she had mentioned, and I sent them to Nate. And Nate, was it within 24 hours? I think within 24 hours they had a landing page with all these features on it, and they've since basically refined it and found more features. And so anyway, I commend you for doing this, Nate, and for the way you with the alacrity that you did to get this up and running.
You got it. And something to mention there, and thank you. But something to mention is having the mentality that you just have to start, and it's a journey. It's not like we have a landing page and we're done. We started with a landing page and now we're continuing to build on it. And I think that was the most important takeaway I received from going to the Travelability Summit last year. And we'll certainly go to the summit here in June.
Yeah, so we now have 135 landing pages, of varying degrees of comprehensiveness, in terms of the features. And one of the things that we found was that we supplemented those landing pages with blog posts that we found, like Sylvia's. So there are about 15 different bloggers with different disabilities and that have visited destinations and have written about them from their disability viewpoint. And we've supplemented those with blog posts. So it gives people a different perspective. So anyway, but this project has been like a year for us in the making, and as part of that, this playbook came about.
Gotcha. The playbook, who has access to the accessibility playbook?
Just people who are part of just these destinations that are part of the Destination Ally program, and they can share them with they're the ones who can share them with their communities and their partners.
Okay.
And we're only working with 10 to begin with. And then, to find out how best to use this. And we've got 3 states and 7 cities that are working with us on this.
Fantastic. So let's move on to what makes a place travelable. Sylvia, you were here in Amelia Island, but in general, when you are looking to travel somewhere, from a mobility standpoint, what are some of your checklists must have when you're looking to travel somewhere? Saying, hey, this place is travelable, I'm ready to go.
Sure. And it's kind of 3 things that I work backwards than a lot of people do when they make reservations. Some people will book their flight, then their hotel, and then different attractions and things like that. And I kind of have to work backwards. First, I look to see, is there anything for me to do or enjoy? So depending on the destination, is that a theme park? Is it museums? Is it restaurants? Is it the beach? And if I find that there are things that I can do there as a wheelchair user, then okay, that's check 1. Then check 2 is, am I able to get around? Now, it depends on the destination. Is there public transportation? Are there accessible buses? Are there accessible taxis? If I'm driving there, and full disclosure, I drove to Amelia Island. I was there with my accessible van, so it's easy for me to get around. But are people able to get around the location? And then finally, will I have an accessible hotel where I can stay? And then everything else on top of that is just kind of like icing on the cake. But those are the main things that I look for.
Gotcha. And Mr. Allen, traveling with a child who's autistic, what do you look for as your checklist? This is a travelable place for me and my family. What does that look like to you?
Funnily enough, to mirror what Sylvia said, and it's advice that I've given to many travelers. One of the central issues to autism is repetitive behaviors and fixed routines. Can be a very narrow set of interests. So the first thing when picking out a destination is, what are my child, what's the young adult's primary interest? What are the things they're really interested in, and do they have something that meets that interest there? Let's take a silly example. A kid that is deeply into butterflies, destination that's got a butterfly museum is going to be absolutely at the top of the list.
Sure.
Now, not everybody is as narrowly focused as I only like butterflies, but it's start looking at what are my loved ones' interests, what can I do to meet those interests there, and then work outwards from that. It is exactly what Sylvia was saying. One of the common things, and you're blessed at Amelia Island, one of the very common things is a love of water. So yeah, by the time you've got swimmable beaches, and I would think most hotels with a good pool, that really helps. That it's if we were talking Fargo, North Dakota, Sylvia, you might struggle to find a hotel with a pool, and at best it will be an indoor pool. So that's very much part of what makes it. And the other thing that really matters to the autism community is just providing information. As Jake said, every disability has a spectrum. Let us take the sensitivity to noise. That can be a little bit sensitive. It can be highly sensitive. At the far extreme, there are some people that seek extra sound for that input so that they can feel grounded and know where they fit in. So you've got a whole range there, and you can't change a place and say, oh, well, let's go to the people that have sensitivity to noise, let's reduce the noise level, because you won't have satisfied all of them. You'd have done a disservice to the few that were looking for extra sound input. The only thing you can do sensibly is describe the level of sound and then let the traveling public make their decisions based upon that. And you can fine tune the detail. I was out last week with JSX Airlines in California. They operate out of a hangar at Burbank Airport. That is pretty darn loud with very high ceilings.
Yeah.
But they also have some rooms off the hangar, which are much lower ceilings and are soundproofed, etc., etc. It's get that information to the hands of the public saying, all right, this looks like it could be tough, but here's a workaround. And it's furnish that information.
Yes, and the conclusion I received, I came to and heard it time and time again, it's not that one size fits all. It's not, you can't put a stamp on your facilities or your business saying, we are mobility for everyone, or, we cover all disabilities. You might be good for 2 or some autistic folks. But it's not a one size fit all. You have to provide the information to the traveler, and they will decide based on that information if it's right for them or not, right?
Yeah, it's a question of give the client, the customer, information on which they can make an informed decision, and not in a hotel sense, but it's part of our training for airline salespeople is you are so used to the fact that everybody, when it comes to flights, are just looking for the cheapest possibility. Now, it's not that people with autism don't want the least expensive flight they can have, but there are factors like non-stops are much more worthwhile for them than connecting flights. Sometimes the time of day can make a difference. If a kid's fixed routine is that they don't get up early in the morning, that first flight out of the day is going to be tough for them. Give the client the information and let them make the informed decisions on routing and timing. And much the same applies in a hotel or an attraction sense. Give the people the information, they will make the decision that works for their family.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into our last section. We'll get into specific ways you as a business owner, some low-hanging fruits that you can easily correct or do to become a little more accessible. But before we do that, let's talk about Amelia Island, kind of the current state. Let's look at this landing page and see kind of what's out there for potential travelers to see, to decide if this is right for them or not. Forward, Alan. So here we are, our accessibility landing page. This has Sylvia's itinerary. Thank you, Sylvia. Transportation options, services available, places to stay. And we can actually, let me just show this to you real quick so what we're doing. Yeah, can everyone see the website page? Or am I still on the PowerPoint?
Now I can see the website page.
Website, okay,
Yeah, I see it.
great. So here we are, the accessible. It looks like all of our other landing pages. Look at your secret, welcome to your secret island paradise. It's the same verbiage from, the same tone we talk about in all of our other landing pages. Here's Miss Sylvia. Click here for your itinerary. So it's a trusted, place. Look at what Sylvia did, and perhaps do the same things. Here's your transportation options. Details on their service. It links out to their websites. Accessibility services. So we have like the city's accessibility page, links out to GOMO Travel. They will actually travel with you and assist you along the way. Our beaches, where are the Moby mats, where are the, beach wheelchairs you can access, etc. So we're going to try and put everything on this page so a potential traveler can see this, and in one place there's everything you need to know, or at least that's available, is in one place. So it makes your searching a little bit easier. We highlighted some places to stay that already had their accessibility page up, and really just cut and paste. So you can see Omni, the Ritz, the Courtyard Marriott here, and their details that they provide. And some activities. So Yield, pirate fishing charters, they have a roll-on charter boat. Of course, Amelia River Cruises has, roll-on access to those boat tours. Heron's Cove has 18 holes of, accessible, wheelchair-friendly mini golf. Fort Clinch State Park, most everything is ramped. Even the historic buildings within the fort, they have wooden ramps that they can put in place while you're there. The Amelia Island Museum, completely accessible. They have meeting space, elevators, and all of their features there are accessible. So that gives you an idea of what we have started, but we want to grow that. Was there anything, Sylvia, when you visited here that really popped out, that you were impressed with when you were at Amelia Island? There's a picture of you on top of the fort, but what do you have to say about kind of where we're at, or maybe where we need to go?
Well, I love the beach, and I've been to so many accessible beaches around Florida. And I was actually just down in the Palm Beaches and went to a couple, and I've even been to one with the Moby mat up in Maine, of all places. And one of the things that frustrates me is that when I see that there's a Moby mat at the beach, that it literally will just like go down to the end of the wooden ramp and then stop. And then there's no beach wheelchair nearby because it has to be attended and somebody has to either rent them out or loan them out. But yeah, I was at a beach in the Palm Beaches, and I'm like, here I am, and the water's all the way down there. And I know the Moby mat can't go down to the water because of the tide and everything. But just the fact that I went to Maine Beach, and I was there with my boys at the time, and usually I'm traveling by myself. And we were able to go all the way down the ramp, but then it went all the way side to side. So there was plenty of room if I was there for a regular beach day to just find a spot to park, and my kids would be able to put down their towels, and we would just be able to, I could roll up and down and chill out, as opposed to just being stuck at the end of a ramp. So that was really nice. And the park itself had accessible bathrooms. It had the pavilions. It had the little boardwalk. It had a huge field. My kids were able to throw around a football. It was kind of, it was kind of cloudy and rainy that day that I was there. But it's really one of my favorite beaches that I've been to. So I was really impressed with that. And yeah, Fort Clinch was cool. My kids thought it would be boring until they started running around and exploring all the crevices and nooks and crannies and stuff like that. And I like that I was able to go to the top level because they're like in St. Augustine, I can't get up to the top of the San Marco up there. And I've been to other forts. I was actually just at Fort Sumter in South Carolina with my boys, and I couldn't get to the top level up there either. So the fact that I could go to where the cannons were, I thought that was really, really cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed your time here. And we're happy to have you anytime.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Okay. So really the meat of this webinar today is, for our partners, and, what are the common things, you all see that can be easily corrected. Some, many times it's free to correct. Many times it's a cheap fix or a cheap tool. But, what can we share with our partners, our lodging partners, our activity partners, restaurants, retail, in your experience, what are some things that they can be prepared with, or easy steps to make the next step? And I think, Alan, you may have a little prepared list.
Funnily enough, let me address something that anybody can do for free that really helps people with autism. And not listed on that, I'll tackle those in a second. It's something you can do that costs nothing and actually then benefits the whole of the traveling public. People with autism have a difficulty understanding, we've got it there, understanding timelines, waiting for things to happen. Look at any part of your operation and see what can reduce waiting times. So that helps anybody with autism. It helps the rest of the public who wants to wait for something that you can have sooner. So that really is sort of the outstanding freebie. What I gave you as that list there, Nate, was you should understand from autism that it's the first thing is that any change of routine is going to have some degree of difficulty. So the timelines, the stimuli, etc., you've got to understand it against that background. You're starting behind the line. And in terms of the other things that I've raised there, it's again a freebie. Don't say things like, "I'll do that in a minute." You're probably going to create an expectation that it's going to happen in 60 seconds. Try to be direct in your communication, which again, it's that specifically to address the autism community? No, they'll benefit more from it than perhaps others will. But is there really a bad thing in our communication about being direct and not being figurative? The whole of the traveling public wants real information, not vague guesses, not allusions to soon. Try getting delayed on a flight departure and getting an accurate piece of information, you'll know what I mean. So it's that kind of covers it. I don't want to read off the slide because that's not the way PowerPoint should be. It's everybody can read this. They can look at it on the recording.
Yeah. Is there, I know you mentioned before, like hotels, they could provide some kind of, autism kit where it might be a fidget spinner or stress balls or, different things that might be easy for them to provide. It might not be the right thing for everyone, but what are your opinions on that?
Funnily enough, the one piece of external kit that makes the most sense, the fidgets and stuff, if a kid is really going to benefit from those, they're probably already traveling with them. Here is a thing which is not up on this slide. Imagine a kid getting overstimulated, unable to communicate their distress. What is one of their reactions to that? And it is to run away. So kids with autism running away, it's very well understood by the autism community. Enough that some kids have some sort of GPS sensor sewn into their clothes or whatever, so they're easy to track down. But one of the things that a hotel can put on that is very inexpensive is a hanging door alarm. Doesn't have to be on every door. It's because it hangs on the door. It's not fixed into the wall. There's no structural change. Just have a couple of hanging door alarms available for rent or to use complimentary for any family that requests it. Very cheap. They're less than $20 a piece.
Right. And I think too, to add to that, is to have a system in place when there is a missing child, regardless. And that way your staff is trained, what a code Atom, means and what they can do to help prevent someone wandering too far away.
Well, yeah, the other thing just related to running away, I said there was a lot of affinity for bodies of water. Now imagine a child running away with no good means of communicating to anybody else and an affinity for bodies of water. There have been a lot of tragedies with those factors coinciding. It is something to be aware of. I haven't looked it up for Amelia Island, Nate, but you certainly can. There are 2 service providers that actually can equip families with a radio frequency tag. That's better than GPS. There's no blind spots. It's a better thing. Usually it's the county sheriff that is the local operator for these systems. It's Operation Lifesaver and LoJack Safety Net. But if you want, I will ping you the details of both of those by email. And that would be a good thing to have on your accessibility website. It's just, this is the local service provider, etc. What's more, once they are a provider for either of these services, their staff, the county sheriff's department or whatever organization it is, get training on tracking down kids with these radio frequency tags.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm writing this all down, but we'll talk about that after for sure.
Yeah.
And Miss Sylvia, what are your experiences, the common low-hanging fruit that's just so easy to fix sometimes, but just need to be mindful of? What advice do you have?
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned easy, because the ADA for wheelchair users is a starting point, and unfortunately many businesses look at the ADA as kind of the bare minimum, and it's really hard if I go to a hotel and the bathroom and the shower are in violation. Like, that's a big deal. It costs a lot of money. It takes time to fix it. That's not what I want to address. What's frustrating and really cool at the same time for me is stuff that isn't covered by the ADA that makes me feel welcomed by a business, is when they look at the things that are not covered, which are matters of convenience. Like, if I go to a hotel and I can reach the food items at the buffet by myself, that's really awesome. If I stay in a hotel room and I don't have any furniture blocking my access to close the blinds, or I can reach things that are not covered by the ADA, things that are convenient and where I feel welcome and somebody took into consideration the things that make my life easy as an independent wheelchair user without somebody to help me. That is a big deal. And all it takes for a hotel or a restaurant or an attraction is just to have a conversation. So many places that I go to that if somebody, a manager just reached out to, whether it's a consultant like me or even just a guest that comes to visit, hey, do you mind taking 5 minutes to tell me, based on your experience today, how could we have made this more convenient or more enjoyable or easier for you? And those conversations rarely happen. Sometimes they think it's it might be if it's a financial obstacle because it's not required by law, but you don't have to do that. Just have a conversation with your guests and ask them, what can we do better that we're not paying attention to? And those tiny little tweaks make us feel so welcome and so considered. And like Alan was saying before about, paying the extra money for flights, yeah, it's nice to be on a budget, but I and a lot of wheelchair users are willing to pay a premium to become loyal customers for life at a place where we feel welcome and that you understand our needs and you're willing to meet those needs.
Right.
Nate, can I just throw
Sure.
in there to take up Sylvia's point about customers for life? If you cater to somebody with autism, you're catering to somebody with a predisposition to repetitive behaviors. These are people that are much more likely than the average to become repeat clients. That was it.
There you go. Yeah. Well,
So
yeah, and I understand, within, the community, once, one traveler, finds a place, has an experience, they're going to spread that word like wildfire to their, to their community.
so
I'll blog about it.
So I want to just bring up a couple of things that have just come up, in what I've researched. I mean, what Sylvia's talking about showers, that there's another blogger, John Morris, who's a triple amputee. He's on our advisory board, and I know him pretty well. And he has traveled. He's a triple amputee. He has one arm and a limp hand left. And he traveled since 2014. He's taken 800 flights, and he stayed in 500 hotels, different hotels, and he's logged them all. And in 80% of the hotels, there was a problem with the shower.
Yep.
And this is a systemic problem in the hotel industry. Is no one is inspecting those accessible rooms, and so they're just sort of left with these construction templates. So one of the things that I wanted to do here now and then, but I'd like to ask Sylvia, because in often cases, the shower nozzle is not reachable because the chair is on a back wall, is misplaced. And to basically move that chair to the correct location so that Sylvia could reach it is a construction project that could be anywhere between $10,000 and $100,000, depending on the plumbing situation. And you can't even find we did an article on this, and you can't even find I contacted a number of different contractors who deal with conversions, bathroom conversions to accessibility. None of them will touch a hotel bathroom because they don't know, they can't give a quote, they don't know what's behind it. And so these things persist. So one of the things is really providing a chair, and a shower chair is an interim solution. And we have in our accessible travel, the accessible playbook, we have 14 items that can be bought on Amazon, through Amazon or Home Depot, that can convert any hotel room or hotel bathroom to some reasonable form of accessibility. And we used a group travel tour operator who assembled all these and uses them on a regular basis. And he found the most reliable chair. And so just the, that works. And so, but I wanted to talk about a couple of things for blind people.
Yes, sir.
And because, and for hearing, because those are other disabilities that probably are more prevalent than wheelchair users. And so just but I know from the conference that we held last year, we had a couple of people who were blind and they had service dogs.
Mhm.
And you're talking about, simple things that can be done. He told me that at some hotels where they put out where he checks in and he goes to the room and there's no, there may not be, braille numbers but he said he doesn't expect that. But he opens the door and there's basically a water bowl there for his dog. That to him is Ritz-Carlton type service, even if it was in a youth hospital. The fact that somebody thought about it. And what Sylvia is talking about is really these matters of convenience. So just if you think about somebody who's blind that has a dog, they need to know, that dog needs water and that dog needs a place to relieve themselves. And so providing that information is a big surprise. And I look at the Accessible Travel Club comments, which is a kind of a Q&A that Sylvia monitors for North America. And the hotels that provide that sort of thing, it's just a surprise. And that's where that word of mouth spreads, that they care. So a lot of it is really, there was a phrase that I think it was attributed to Mark Twain, but it said something to the effect that kindness is the language that the blind can see and the deaf can hear, and the paralyzed can feel, I might add. And just and so this is something that I think really is the sort of common sense training. And then people with hearing disabilities, they come up to someone, they need to write notes because they can't communicate any other way if there's not a hearing loop or there's not, someone with who's proficient in sign language in an ASL. And so they have to be prepared to basically communicate through notes, which is cumbersome. Or they communicate through an iPhone and through the, through basically a text-to-speech mechanism. And so just these are things. And then I know the ODO study that was done, this open door study that was done, they asked, what are the main barriers in hotels? And one of the main barriers for people with wheelchairs is heavy doors. And I think, and so we found a video, this is part of the Accessible Playbook, with one of these videos. So a 3-minute video on how to lighten the pressure, reduce the pressure on a heavy door with an Allen wrench that anyone can have. It took about 4 seconds to actually reduce the pressure to something that was accessible to, there is a law that it should be 5 pounds of pressure, but these bathrooms and the accessible bathrooms and a lot of the hotel rooms, the accessible hotel room doors are heavy and too heavy. So those are things. And the other easy thing for people in wheelchairs is and I don't know, Sylvia, if this happens to you, but oftentimes there's like a trash receptacle at the elevator bank, and it's hard. It's unreachable. The button's unreachable.
Yeah, it's hard to reach sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So just those are types of things that I found, and so we have 40 of those in our playbook. I'm not trying to sell the playbook because it's not available to anybody but these 10 people right now. So just but we have 40 of those scenarios in that playbook for different disabilities that are easy fixes or low cost fixes, and by low cost, I mean under $250. And so just that can be fixed. So
Right.
the other thing, the thing that I run into that we're trying to address at our event in June is really people don't, they need to feel comfortable on understanding where to focus, because there are so many disabilities, and you've done a good job with your website on kind of focusing on wheelchair, which is really probably where people should start because it's the most visible. And but we're trying to create like a 3-year plan, and the first year plan is really focus on wheelchairs and whatever you can find, and then the second year you focus on another disability and theme it out around that disability national holiday to basically create a discovery process for features that people may have for blind travelers. They may have audio descriptions at a museum, or they may have different areas that they have. And so those, and then the third year you focus on autism, and just and spend the whole year with that focus and a theme around that holiday. And I think it gives people, and it gives hotels, because it's really an awareness issue. Awareness really creates change. And if you spend a year with something like that, then people will have a better understanding of the needs and all of that. And then, how you budget for it and where it fits into the scope, it just depends on, things. But that's what I found is really that, what we're trying to do is provide them a comfortable place to, here's where to start, here's how to create a 3-year plan, here's a 5-year plan, and just and then, have somebody like Sylvia, come in and basically experience your destination from her point of view and give you tips on what can be done, and which is what you're doing now. Really, is just she's doing this, and I think Sylvia is probably the most prolific, one of the most prolific, and in terms of eloquence, of written eloquence, in terms of her blog. She's a writer. She's not a blogger, she's a writer. She's written several books, and she really has a lot of, I think, is a great communicator. And so just so those are things that I would suggest in terms of, how to go about, and for hotels, hotels are the main stumbling block for most people. I think the museums are the lowest hanging fruit, because every major museum has government grant funding, and in order to get that funding, they have to have an ADA coordinator. Those ADA coordinators have their own annual meeting, and they try to go deep. I mean, they have programs for people with Alzheimer's and dementia, and so that's the lowest hanging fruit that you can find, I think, are the major museums. And but I think but the hotel situation is really a matter of finding, where do you start? How do you identify hotels? And I think the logical place to start is finding hotels that have a pool lift, and just because that kind of is a self-selected group that has, they at least have that. And so just so if they have that, they probably may have more. And then you can promote those hotels. Here are the hotels with a pool lift. What you did really is you took the hotels that had probably landing pages, right?
Right.
And so, and then the autism side of it, what I found in terms of, and Alan has been very helpful, he's on our advisory board, and he's been very helpful at our conference. understanding the different roles that each person at a hotel title plays and how they interact with people who may have families with autism. And one of the things that I think, Alan, that I didn't hear you address, you may have, but the important thing is dining. And they have problems because they're worried about meltdowns in a restaurant. And so just so they usually order into the room, or they did, they have, so any restaurant that opens at 5 o'clock and has no, has very low, customer attendance at that hour can basically promote that as something that autistic families can share a meal in a restaurant, and they can put them in, or they may have a private room, a private dining area, or a conference room, or something like that. And if they have that, that's something that they could, they could also use.
Nate, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Just one thing that I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to jump in on before we run out of time, and while I have it fresh in my head. I don't know exactly who is on the webinar right now, and I know it's going to be on your site. So one of the things that I would love to offer, because I'm always looking for an excuse to go back to Fernandina Beach and Amelia Island, and one of the things I do for the hotels that are out there, I find that one of the hesitance that a lot of them find to bringing in somebody, a wheelchair user, somebody with mobility issues, is that they're afraid that if that person points out what the issues are, that they're opening themselves up to a lawsuit,
Right.
And they don't want to do that. I found that with a project that I was doing here with Rollins College a few years ago. That's not what this is about. This is about opening yourself to make things better. And I would love to offer my services to any hotel. Let me, just comp my stay, let me stay for a night. I'm 2 hours away in Sanford. I'm not that far. Let me stay for a night or 2 nights. And above that, I won't charge you anything. Let me go through your property. Let me help you improve your accessibility. And let me show you how you can promote those accessible features on your website or through your marketing materials. And I would be happy to do that for any hotel or location out there.
That's amazing. That's very generous of you, Sylvia.
Oh, it's selfish.
Thank you for that offer.
Yeah.
You'll be here for about a month a year.
I would love that. I would love that.
Well, that's amazing. And, to everyone's point today, this can be a scary topic, for business owners. Even before I attended my conference last year with Jake, you don't know what you don't know, and you're kind of scared of the unknown. You're like, my impression was it has to be a perfect landing page with every option that's out there. And if I miss one, I'm in trouble. Like you have this preconceived notion of, if I don't do it right, it's kind of trouble. But that's really not the case. It's about continually, working towards, the simple things that show you care, the garbage, the trash can in front of the elevator, the dog bowl for the service animal, things that aren't required by ADA that make a place more travelable is really what we're looking for. And if you can share any of that, the business partners on Amelia Island, if you can share any of your information or want to host Sylvia, let me know. We'll get you on the website, and we want to promote anything you have, that is accessible. So let's keep it on top of our minds. And it's a journey, and we may never arrive, but we'll always be working towards, becoming more accessible as a destination. So I want to thank everyone. Unless anyone has any questions, we can certainly open this up. But I want to thank our speakers in advance for taking the time to be with us today. So appreciate you. Well done.
Thanks for having us, Nate.
You're very welcome, Nate. And just reinforce what I think both you and Jake have said. It's important to start. Arriving at we've done everything, you can work towards that. It's just get started. We offer training to everybody in specific jobs at hotels and attractions. So that to address Jake's point, we've got a different module for the food and beverage people than we do from the security people, which is different from the front desk. On the other hand, they all start with an introductory module. Come to us and do that. That is ridiculously inexpensive, and don't do it for everybody. Put it to the managers first. Let them get some awareness. It's a step, and that's then a step that will cost next to nothing for 5 or 6 managers. Let them do that, and then figure out. We'll do more next year. We'll progress, but get started.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to say, just like Nate, you're an example of what has happened, I think. Just a classic example of what I find, which is, and I hesitate to use this analogy, but it's like a gateway drug, finding a gateway drug, so like marijuana's, but this is in a positive way, because what happens is with Nate is he started with this, landing page, and he's typical. Now he's doing more. He's got all these different elements. I mean, that landing page you have 2 or 3 times the number of features you started out with right now, and he's looking to do more. And I find that every single person that I deal with, that, whether it's the hotels, these are basically people in the hospitality industry, and so they're used to serving people and they're pleasers, and they just don't know what they don't know. And so any kind of an awareness like this that you can create makes them it unlocks some intrinsic goodness in them that makes them want to do more, because this is more than, here we're marketing. This is part of our marketing job, and this is part of our service job, and just and yet we're helping humanity at the same time. And so it has that cachet that I find that because I'm involved in this myself, I see it all the time. People think I'm a better person than I really am. And so so it happens. So so I think it, if you can get started, you'll want to do more, because you'll just be able, you'll see it everywhere. And so anyway, I want to thank you for putting this together, Nate. I thought it was great being, co-presenting with these other two, with Sylvia and Alan.
Well, we appreciate you, your support of our destination, and yeah, thanks for your time for sure. I'll stop the recording. So if anyone has some questions and they feel more comfortable asking them offline, I'll stop the recording. But thank you everyone for being here today.